Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, certified financial planner and owner of Elevation Financial. You can find me on the web, as always, at elevationfinancial.com. Thanks for joining me today. We're talking HSAs. I love HSAs. HSA stands for Health Savings Account, and we're going to talk about the triple tax benefit of an HSA today. People kind of use the phrase triple tax benefit to talk about HSAs often, and some people find that confusing, and we're going to unpack that and just a little more about HSAs, kind of how they work as well, and an overall discussion about them. So, both finance and healthcare can be very confusing to navigate. They can be very overwhelming. The intricacies, the bureaucracy, the complexity sometimes. So there's a lot of options in both areas, and there's kind of a juxtaposition or an integration of the two in the HSA, the health savings account. This is a tool that can really give you substantial benefits in your financial and your healthcare areas of life, and it's really underutilized by so many. It's a great account. It's a lot of advantages, but it's really underutilized and overlooked, I think, by a lot of people. So HSAs are tax advantage accounts specifically designed to help individuals with high deductible health plans save money and pay for eligible medical expenses. That's kind of the definition of HSA. They're really powerful, really flexible, often misunderstood. Many people are not aware of the flexibility and the long-term benefits provided by HSAs. So HSAs can be used for healthcare expenses in the short term, but it's also possible to unlock some pretty massive potential for long-term financial planning as well. So, understanding the workings of an HSA is a really powerful way to supplement your other investments and save money in the long run. So let's dig into that. First, let's understand the triple tax benefits of HSAs. So to truly appreciate the power of an HSA, it's crucial to understand the triple tax benefit that it offers. So unlike traditional savings accounts or other tax advantage accounts like, say, IRAs or 401ks, HSAs provide not just one or two, but three different tax advantages. First, the contributions to an HSA are tax deductible. This means you can reduce your taxable income by the amount you contribute. So this can result in tax savings, especially for those in higher tax brackets. It can really kind of bring that tax liability down. Second, the growth of funds within an HSA is tax-free. Any interest, dividends, capital gains earned on your HSA balance are not subject to taxation. This shelters your money from taxes just like an IRA. Actually, I should probably say tax deferred. I mean, they could be tax-free, but we'll talk about that in the third segment here. But tax deferred is probably a better way. So just like an IRA, they are tax deferred. Gains, dividends along the way are not taxed. They're sheltered from taxes inside that HSA wrapper. So a note here, it's important to note that unlike a flexible spending account, which is an FSA, HSAs don't have a use it or lose it provision. So any unused funds in your HSA will roll over from year to year, which allows you to build a substantial investment balance over time. So finally, the third triple tax benefit, finally, and the most important, withdrawals from HSAs are tax-free when they're used for qualified medical expenses. So this means that not only are you saving on taxes when you contribute to an HSA, but you can also withdraw funds without incurring additional tax liability when you need them for medical expenses. So this makes HSAs incredibly valuable and a really great tool for managing healthcare costs while you're minimizing your tax burden as well. So let's talk eligibility and contribution limits for HSAs. So the benefits of an HSA might sound pretty enticing, but you also need to understand the eligibility requirements and the contribution limits as well. So first of all, to be eligible for an HSA, you need to be enrolled in what's called a high deductible health plan, or HDHP. High deductible health plans typically have lower monthly premiums, but higher deductibles compared to traditional health insurance plans. So the IRS defines a high deductible health plan as any plan with a deductible of at least $1,500 for an individual or $3,000 for a family, and that's as of 2023. The deductible is the amount you have to pay out of pocket before your insurance plan starts to pay covered services. So for example, if you have a high deductible health plan with a $1,500 deductible and you need to see a doctor, you'll have to pay the first $1,500 of the bill yourself. And once you have met your deductible, the insurance plan will start to pay for covered expenses. So in addition to the deductible, high deductible health plans also have an out-of-pocket maximum. So this is the most you'll have to pay in a year for covered services. So for 2023, the out-of-pocket maximum for a high deductible health plan is $7,500 for an individual and $15,000 for a family. So once you've confirmed your eligibility, you can contribute to your HSA up to the annual contribution limits set by the IRS. So for 2023, the contribution limit is $3,850 for individuals and $7,750 for families. And if you're age 55 or older, you can make an additional catch-up contribution of $1,000. So it's important to note that both you and your employer can contribute to your HSA, and the total contributions can't exceed the annual limit. So the combination of your contributions plus employer have to stay within that annual limit. All right, how to open and fund an HSA. Let's talk about that. So opening an HSA is pretty straightforward. You can do it through your bank, credit union, financial institution. A lot of places offer HSA accounts, like an investment firm as well. You'll need to just open your account with your basic information. You can begin funding it online. However, most employers will basically have an HSA account set up for you. They'll link it to your payroll. They'll make it easy to automatically contribute from your paycheck, and it's already kind of preset for you. So for the most part, if your employer offers an HSA compatible health plan, they're probably going to have an HSA account already pre-opened for you and ready to go. And you can just use that as the most convenient way to deposit those funds from your paycheck. So you can also do a lump sum at the beginning of the year, or do regular contributions from your paycheck, or make periodic contributions wherever it's held. So it's really important to keep track of those contributions to ensure you stay within those annual limits set by the IRS. All right, let's talk about maximizing your savings with an HSA. So now that you have an understanding of that triple tax benefit, the eligibility, contributions, how do you maximize savings with an HSA? First of all, max it out. Contribute the maximum amount available. You can take full advantage of that tax benefit up front, and then build that tax deferred growth for the future, and potentially have that tax-free money available for medical expenses. Also, you can use it for long-term growth. While most HSA providers will give you kind of a basic savings account, some will offer, actually many, offer investment options. So you can invest your funds in a diversified portfolio, for example, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And if you're looking at this money in the long term, that can potentially be an option for gaining, higher returns over time. So make sure you know your risk tolerance and your risk capacity. Make sure you understand what the time horizon is for your money. So, if we're investing funds for long-term growth, again, many HSA providers will give you investment options. If you look on the lineup, they'll say things like, this fund or that fund, or equity funds, or, growth funds, and they'll give you lots of options for investing. And so again, you can get higher returns compared to a traditional savings account. So when choosing investments for your HSA, generally, for most people, it makes sense to consider a diversified approach, a good mix of, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, international, domestic. Diversify accordingly and get a well-rounded mix of funds, just like you would in an IRA, for example. Time horizon is the key here. That's really the key consideration. So if your plan is to use your HSA for short-term medical expenses, for example, within 1 to 5 years, then keeping your HSA in cash or in very conservative investments is probably going to make more sense for you. But if you also are able to pay for medical expenses out of pocket, and you plan to use your HSA for medical expenses later in life, for example, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you might want to consider investing it more aggressively, because you'll get better growth. So, investing your funds aggressively, which means, more stocks or stock funds, you're likely going to see short-term volatility, which is ups and downs. But over the long term, your expectation would be to see stronger growth. So for this reason, I like to ask the question, when do I plan to use this money? And then plan accordingly as you invest it. The longer the time horizon, the more aggressive you can be. All right, let's talk about using your HSA funds for qualified medical expenses. So while growing your HSA funds for the future is important, it's also really important to understand how to use the funds for qualified medical expenses. So qualified medical expenses include a wide range of healthcare costs, things like doctor's visits, prescriptions, dental and vision care, some over-the-counter products. You really want to keep track of your expenses and retain those receipts or documentation to support the eligibility of those withdrawals. So one strategy for using HSAs is to pay for qualified medical expenses out of pocket whenever possible. And then by doing that, you continue to allow your HSA funds to continue growing tax-free. So you pay for medical expenses out of pocket, don't use your HSA in the short term for them, and let it grow. And then you have the option of reimbursing yourself later for those expenses that you incur today. So be sure you organize and keep those receipts for any unreimbursed medical expenses so you have that option in the future, because that makes the withdrawal a qualified medical expense and therefore tax-free. So, if you need to withdraw funds from your HSA to cover medical expenses, be sure you know the rules around that. Non-qualified withdrawals might be subject to income tax and the 20% penalty. So make sure you understand the rules surrounding HSA withdrawals. There's lots of sites that you can go to. You can look up on search engines or AI tools and just say, hey, what's a list of qualified medical expenses? You can also go to your HSA provider or your health plan, and they'll probably help you with that too. So what are some strategies for using HSAs for retirement? So while an HSA is primarily designed to help manage healthcare costs, it also can be a retirement supplement. So a nice feature of an HSA is that once you turn 65, you can use your HSA funds for non-medical expenses without incurring the 20% penalty. However, those non-medical withdrawals still will be subject to income tax, just like a traditional IRA. So basically, it kind of converts to behaving like a traditional IRA at age 65. So, one strategy is to use your HSA as a supplemental retirement account. Use those HSA funds to grow tax-free over the years or tax-deferred over the years, and you can build a substantial balance in there over time that can be used for any purpose in retirement. Additionally, if you have Medicare, you can use HSA funds to pay for Medicare premiums and long-term care insurance premiums as well. So it's pretty flexible. And another strategy is to simply use HSA funds for future healthcare costs in retirement. Our healthcare expenses tend to increase as we get older. So having a dedicated pool of funds specifically allocated for healthcare can provide some more peace of mind and give you some more financial security. So, make sure you use your HSA funds strategically and intentionally, and that'll give you some options for, navigating retirement with confidence and have some supplemental tools at your disposal. So make sure you're intentional about it. So how does an HSA compare to other tax advantage savings accounts? So when it comes to accounts in general, HSAs are unique because of that triple tax benefit we talked about. So traditional retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks provide tax advantages going in. HSAs have the additional benefit of tax-free withdrawals for qualified medical expenses. So, tax deferred going in, tax deductible going in, tax-free coming out. So just no taxes anywhere if you use this for medical. So again, HSA contributions are deductible. And so be sure you kind of understand how that helps you with your tax liability going forward. But of course, you want to weigh the pros and cons of different tax advantage accounts based on your individual financial goals and your circumstances. So what are some common mistakes to avoid with HSAs? So HSAs are awesome. They're super beneficial. There are some common mistakes, though. One is over contributing. Some people just they're not aware of the contribution limits and they over contribute. You want to make sure you avoid that because you can get penalties and tax implications for over contributing. Another mistake, using HSA funds for non-qualified expenses. Non-qualified withdrawals can be subject to income tax and that 20% penalty. So make sure you understand what expenses are qualified medical expenses. Make sure you check with various sources like your HSA provider can help you with this, your health plan provider. There's lots of sites online that'll help you with that. Make sure you use the funds correctly. Another mistake, failing to invest your HSA for long-term growth. It's a missed opportunity. It depends on your situation. Some people do need to use it for short-term expenses, but if you do have a longer time horizon and you're able and interested in using HSA as a long-term vehicle, then you want to make sure it's invested properly and aggressively enough to support those goals. So overall, I love HSAs. HSAs are awesome. That triple tax benefit really gives you some massive potential for tax efficiency. As long as you understand the mechanics, those tax-free withdrawals for medical expenses can be super beneficial, especially later in life. And it can really serve as a good supplemental retirement account to go with your IRAs, 401ks, and investments. So make sure that you're really being intentional about it. So again, A lot of people just think of HSAs as, hey, it's my short-term medical account. Money goes in, I pay for stuff this year with it. That's pretty common. A lot of people don't understand the full benefit of an HSA and how it works, even for the long term. So be sure you're intentional. If your intention is to use it for the short term and you're intentionally deciding that, that's great. But if you are just doing it because it's the default, maybe think through, does it make sense to think of it as a long-term investment account? And then plan accordingly and be intentional about how you fit the HSA into your financial plan. So with that, again, HSAs are awesome. I love them. They're great tools, a lot of flexibility. So think about that as your, if you have an HSA, think about that. If you don't have an HSA, you might consider, enrolling in a health plan that offers HSAs if you want to use it in these ways we've discussed. All right, that's it for today. So as always, I love questions. I love comments. Feel free to reach out. You can find me on my website at elevationfinancial.com or on all the social platforms out there, pretty much all of them, most of them. You can find me pretty easily. Reach out again at elevationfinancial.com. You can send me a note or you can book a complimentary money session if you want to consider potentially working together. So with that, appreciate you joining me today as always. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.